Hello guys, it's Jonathan. Today I'm doing another BakuTech video. This time I want to make a video on BakuTech misconceptions. So, I feel like there's a lot of things with BakuTech that are just not really properly documented or stated. This isn't meant to be like an attack on anyone, but obviously BakuTech is an old series. It's like all in Japanese, so some stuff I do understand just kind of gets lost in translation, or just doesn't really get translated at all. So I wanted to give some insight to a few different Bakugan here, to where I feel like the rules are either completely just misconstrued, or I've seen some contentious parts about them that I wanted to help to hopefully clear up. So let's just go ahead and get started with our first Bakugan. I know this one's probably going to be a bulk of the video, but this one requires a lot of explanation. So the first Bakugan is Dio Sivac. Dio Sivac is the sole reason to why this video did not come out in early June like it was supposed to. It's early October now. So even with just trying to find stuff, help, whatever, getting information on Dio Sivac and all of its rules and some of its like fringe cases was just not happening. So I did find a blog post like right before making this video that did clear up certain information, but there are still fringe cases that make this thing a confusing mess to deal with. So why is this thing so bad? It's because of this thing, Savac. This little piece, tiny metal piece, happened to be the biggest problem in trying to make this video. Now I can say, I can still relieve a very particular misconception. So first up, Savac, based on what people say about it, is, the whole thing about Savac is if it lands, like, on its side or off the card or something, you don't get the boost, which is right. However, if it lands on the magnet on a card, then you get the 2 energy boost, or however much it is, depending on the version. For Dio Sivac, this is only partially true. So yes, if Savac lands on the same card as Dio Sivac, then yes, you get the boost of Savac on Dio Sivac. However, most people seem to think that this just happens if it's on any card. So if there's another card over here, and Savac, I guess, like, lands over here on the magnet, a lot of people seem to think that this just gives Dio Sivac the boost. It does not. So what actually happens here is, if you, let's just say, have Zeta Munikis on this card, like, this is one of your Bakugan, right? These two Bakugan are both in your deck. If Savac lands on this card, then this other Bakugan here gets the boost. Savac isn't really a dice thrower bonus type of Bakugan. It's more so a support piece, kind of. So yes, it can boost itself if Savac is on its card, but if it's thrown onto a different card that your, one of your other Bakugan is on, then yes. It adds to that Bakugan's total. So that's pretty neat. However, what happens if it lands on an unoccupied card? There's no one there. Or there's an opponent there. Well, in this case, Savac just stands there. Savac doesn't do anything, it just sits there doing nothing. But yes, it can just sit there. Even if Savac or Dio Sivac is knocked off, Savac is meant to just stay on the field on its own. Now, if Savac is, out of play, or like, let's say it goes, like, and lands, like, off a card, like, back here, then yeah, you just pick it up and you just can put it back into Dio Sivac once you've, rolled, I guess folded Dio Sivac back up. But, in this circumstance, let's just say you get a double stand, okay? Your opponent gets a double stand, then Savac is returned to your hand because this card is now taken, and Savac does not prevent that. So that is just kind of just what it is right there. So yes, Dio Sivac does boost your allies, and also, yeah, if you land another Bakugan, like, let's just say Zeta Munikis lands here, it's your Bakugan. Now Zeta Munikis gets the Savac boost. Cool. So yeah, it can sit there, and if you get another Bakugan of your own onto that card, you do get the boost. So even if, again, your opponent has a Bakugan on the card, Savac is there first, and then you land, now there's a G-Power battle, but you have Savac, okay, cool, Zeta Munikis gets Savac, and it's probably going to wipe the floor with this thing in a G-Power battle. Great. That is how Dio Sivac works. It is very convoluted, but the problem is that we're not done. There are certain fringe rules that I can't explain. So, well, I can give my interpretation of how I believe they should work, But these are not stated anywhere. I looked through so many like blog posts, like really old blog posts, official sources, videos, whatever else I could find. All this information's like all in Japanese from over a decade ago, but I just could not find anything on these fringe cases. So what I'm referring to here is what happens when Savac gets KO'd, right? Let's just say it's sitting on a card, doesn't matter where it is, right? And somehow it gets knocked off the card. Or it even just gets like knocked over like this, and the magnet's off the card now. What happens if Savac is KO'd? Not Dio Sivac, I think I said Dio Sivac. If Savac is KO'd, what happens in that case, right? So based on my own interpretation, here's how I believe it should probably work. If Savac is paired with a Bakugan, whether it's Dio Sivac or something else, Savac can get knocked off the card, it doesn't matter. It gets the boost anyway. I think that would make the most sense, because otherwise I feel like Savac is just very small. It's easy to tell the cards. I think it makes the most sense to just say that once one of your Bakugan and Savac are both on the card, Savac is kind of just automatically considered a boost for that Bakugan regardless of what happens to it. Otherwise, again, I feel like Savac is very underpowered. It's already hard enough to land, I'm not going to lie, so I feel like that is very underpowered otherwise. So I think, yeah, it should just stay under that circumstance. But if, let's just say, it's on an unoccupied card and then gets, knocked off, in that case, I think then Savac is just returned to your hand. I think because it wasn't boosting anything, that yes, then the boost should just not exist. You don't get any potential, boost from it. It doesn't get to completely just control a card after it's been knocked off. That wouldn't really make sense, I feel. So with that said, then what happens if Savac's on a card and Dio Sivac, or another Bakugan, we'll say Dio Sivac, right? Dio Sivac's on a card and it gets KO'd, but Savac stays on. In that case, I think Savac is now just sort of on like an unoccupied card, as, I've already explained, if it just, lands on an unoccupied card. Same rules apply, it doesn't have any kind of link with the Bakugan that got KO'd. It just stands on the card. Well, if it gets KO'd, it just gets returned to your hand since they win the card, but if it just gets KO'd, then yeah, I think it just acts as an unoccupied card, so yeah. That, in terms of the crit KO stuff on Savac, that is my interpretation of it. But, I mean, I guess feel free to make your own rules, because I could not find a single thing on the clarification for these fringe cases. But yes, in terms of the actual rule set that I can find, Savac is more so a support piece for other Bakugan on your team, including, well, Dio Sivac, but is not limited to Dio Sivac, which seems to be a common misconception. Apologies for going on for so long, this thing is just convoluted as all hell. Okay, let's move on to something that is just a little bit easier to explain. Aquas and Falco, these two are both known to have two different G powers. Of course, Aquas has, the one here and the one here. Falco has one here and one here. So how does that work? So Aquas usually has a lower G power. This one in particular is 340 and 200. Then Falco is 620 and 180. That's just for how these are. So how does that work? Aquas, you add them together in its regular mode. It does have a little mode where like the wings are up and stuff. In that mode, you just use the tail G power. That's the only one that's actually shown. So that's the low G power, the 200 Gs. But if both G powers are visible in this kind of usual mode, then you add them together. In that case, well, in this case, it's 540 Gs, which is consistent with the Bakugan release at the time, and later re-releases of Aquas would be things like 620 Gs, for example. If added together, it's consistent with the things released around it. So yes, they are added together. Falco is the opposite. You don't add them together. If it's in its little mode where the wings are like up and you can't see this other G power right here, and only the one on the tail is appearing, then it's just the small one. It's just the 180 Gs. If both appear, you take the bigger one, 620 Gs. So yeah, Aquas, you add them together. Falco, you take them separately. It's stupid that they are different, but yes, they are different, and that is how they work. Again, I wish they were consistent with this, but they just weren't, so yeah, just kind of go with what makes sense. I mean, like, Aquas, why would they have 340 and 200 separately? It's just like low G power and like lower G power. So yeah, obviously it makes sense to add them together. Whereas Falco, yeah, I don't think they'd have an 800 G Bakugan just existing like that. That'd be a little bit powerful. So with that one, yes, they're taken separately, normal and low-G. So that's how these two work. Again, unfortunately, they are kind of the inverse, but it is what it is, I guess. Next up, I have a few different Bakugan that have some questionable parts on them. First up, Gus Burnan. Some people seem to think that these are soul pieces. They're not soul pieces. These are built-in plastic pieces. They look like soul pieces. They should be soul pieces, but they just aren't. So, yeah, unfortunately, but yeah, these just aren't soul pieces. They're just normal built-in pieces. I don't know why they look like that if they were meant to be built-in, but yeah, you can't swap these out. Similarly, Warcry. This one's a bit more known, I think. I've seen some more confusion on Gus Burnan, but yeah, Warcry. These look like cross pieces, but they're not cross pieces. If you have these, you know this, but if you don't have them, I could see why it'd be confusing, so I just wanted to go over them anyway. And then we get to the weirdest of the bunch, Dive Fujoe, this thing. Okay. Has a cross piece right here. But it is not a cross piece, but also is a cross piece. So there's a black recolor of this thing that came in one of those random packs. That one does have a cross piece here. This blue one, well, it's kind of isn't a cross piece. So it is technically a cross piece. You can see here, there's like the little holder thing for it. But it's actually glued in, so you can't remove it. I mean, you can if you try hard enough, and then it can kind of work as a convert piece if you want it to. Although, because it was glued in, doesn't have like the proper like rubber and stuff, I don't know how well that would work. I'm not going to test that, so yeah, if you want to try that, I mean, try at your own risk. But yeah, this isn't meant to be a cross piece. It just seems like they, after modeling it and molding it, they decided last second to make this into a built-in plastic piece rather than a proper, cross piece. So I guess it was a balance change last second is what I would assume. So yeah, this thing is not meant to be a cross piece, but then the recolor is actually a cross piece. And this one can be if you remove it, probably, but yeah, this thing is very weird, but the general idea is that this is not meant to be a cross piece, despite, looking like one. Yeah, Dive Fujoe is definitely another strange case. Next up, we got Zeta Munikis. It has to do with the Zeta Roulette. So I went through painstakingly, checking every single number multiple times on the Zeta Roulette to see exactly how many things were on here. In the past, I was actually wrong on this. I said there were 6 options, which would also make sense because I'm fairly confident that Zeta is the 6th letter of the Greek alphabet. But no, there's actually 8 options on the Zeta Roulette. So basically, there's 4 10G boosts. They are kind of across from each other, right? Like almost like in an X pattern. So yeah, you have 4 10G boosts. 50% chance of getting a 10G boost. Then, on 2 opposite sides, there are 20G boosts. So, okay, 25% chance of a 25% chance of a 20G boost. Then, on one of the remaining parts, there is a 40G boost, just one, 12.5% chance of getting that 40G boost. And then across from that 40G boost, there is the 200G boost. Again, 12.5% chance of getting that. So yeah, it's not 6, and yeah, they are distributed like that. Much higher chance of getting a 10G boost than I initially thought. So yeah, that's a 50% chance, and again, you have, 2 20s, and then a 40 and a 200. Also, yes, I was very thorough in this. I also made sure to test out the Friendship Bind set version of Zeta, and it does seem to be the exact same. So yeah, these two are consistent with one another. Now we have Bujin Dragaon. This has to do with the Bujin piece. So, I've seen people talk about the Bujin piece having this, special ability. I haven't seen this one too often, but I have heard some people say, Bujin has a special built-in ability to where, you get to basically move Bujin Dragaon. Let's just say there's another card somewhere else, and an opponent has a Bakugan there, you can then move it to that card. This doesn't actually even exist. This is not a real thing. Bujin has absolutely 0 gameplay benefit. It's just a physical piece. There's nothing. I've looked online. I've translated articles from the Internet Archive, from Bakugan's official website from back then, blog posts from that. I've looked up at the box that I have. doesn't come with any cards either, so it can't be misconstrued from like a card ability. I don't know where this thing came from with like the whole ability that Bujin has. Well, it doesn't have. So yeah, I don't know where that came from. Bujin does not have an ability. It's just a physical piece. That there's no ability. I don't know where that came from. I don't see this talked about much anymore, but it was something that I used to see sometimes, that Bujin had like a special ability. It doesn't, so I wanted to at least mention that here, that, you know, it's just a physical piece and no other attributes to it. It's just kind of a cool extra bonus piece for buying the Battlefield Kiwami set, I guess. Now we get to Bakugan Armors. I know it's not anything about BakuTech, but it's close enough, and I want to talk about this stuff anyway, because again, there are some misconceptions with it. So first up, the core of the Bakugan has a G-Power. You have an arm. The attribute arm determines the attribute. The skill arm determines a special skill. More on these later. But then we have these soul pieces. These are not the same as the regular soul pieces. They are not the same as the ones in BakuTech. They're actually molded slightly differently. So no, Bakugan Armors and BakuTech do not have compatible soul pieces. I've seen this around before. Some people mention how they probably should be, you know, compatible or something, but no, they aren't. Probably should have been, honestly. I feel like, but no, they aren't actually compatible, so is what it is. But yeah, unfortunately, they are only locked to the other Armors Bakugan. Kind of a missed opportunity to involve, like, to, you know, be able to involve old pieces. Probably should have done that, but nope, they are a bit different, unfortunately. Okay, let's talk about some of these armor abilities. So these four are all fairly straightforward, honestly. Rekka, Hiryu, Shippu, Zeku, Ogon, Hado, Ikki, Tosen. So all of these abilities, I want to at least clarify, there's a specific order. This is getting like super technical, but there is supposed to be an order to how you're supposed to, you know, add these up. So first up, you get the G-Power bonus of the Bakugan. Then you get the Gate card bonus after you flip the card. And then after you get the Gate card bonus, then you add the Armor ability bonus. So it's the last thing you do in that order of operations. As far as what they do, Rekka Hiryu, you just add 100 Gs with, well, not Rekka Hiryu, you know, mix and match the armor abilities, but still. The plus 100 arm, yeah, you just add 100 extra Gs onto the previous total of, you know, the Bakugan's G-Power, Gate card bonus, plus 100 Gs, there you go. Plus Wind, this one basically allows you to, you know, you add the Bakugan's base G-Power to whatever your attribute arm is, and then you get a second Gate card bonus, and that is, of course, the Ventus bonus. If you're using, let's just say, Pyrus, and then plus Wind, you add the base G-Power, Pyrus Gate bonus, Ventus Gate bonus. If it's stock like this Shippu Zeku is, you add the Ventus Gate bonus, and then another Ventus Gate bonus. It's just the same thing twice. There you go. Plus Light, same exact thing as plus Wind, but for Chaos, and then times 2. This one, it's basically like using one of these two just in stock. It's just whatever you have as the attribute arm, you just add it a second time. These are all fairly straightforward, but I just wanted to include them anyway since Armors is like fairly obscure. Now we have Koppa Kudaku. I am very much zoomed out here because I want to give the full sort of field setup for Gachi/Armors. So Koppa Kudaku, there is a misconception on its ability. I've seen people say how O-Raid works in a specific way that it doesn't work in. So the misconception that I've seen is that O-Raid works where you have to basically move Koppa Kudaku itself to a card that is perpendicular, so basically on one of the 4 sides, meaning that in this case you'd move it, well, your only option would be to move it to this card. That's not true. How O-Raid actually works is that you can just pick up the entire card, and you move it to one of the 4 sides. Can't be on the corner, can't be like partially on, can't be like turned. So you have to move it to one of these sides. These 2 sides obviously are blocked off. This is where the edge of the arena is. But you can move it anywhere else. You can move it like here, here. You can move it like all the way back here, here. You can do whatever you want with it. You can move it as long as one of the sides matches with one of the other sides, you're good to go. So as far as these 2 end cards go, either of these sides work. For these 2 kind of inner cards, it's either this side or this side. And then for these 2 end cards, it could be one of the 3 outer sides. Obviously, if you already have moved a card, or like one gets, you know, one, then like this side, for example, will be opened up. But yeah, that's how O-Raid works. It moves the entire card around, not just the Bakugan, which is a pretty big shift in ability, especially when you could like do something like this to like block an opponent or something. So it's a pretty interesting ability, I would say. Next up is Hado Kaio, with the ability Blow Away. This one has another misconception. So basically the misconception is that if you have, let's just say an opponent Bakugan, on a different card, the idea is that you basically, once it stands, you could choose to move to a different card as long as an opponent's occupying it, and then you can move to that card to, start a G-Power battle. Hey, wait a minute. This is the exact same thing as Bujin Dragaon's ability that didn't exist. And yeah, this ability doesn't exist on Ogon Houoh, or not Ogon Houoh, on Hado Kaio either, yeah. Somehow the same exact ability was placed on a 2 different Bakugan, and it's just incorrect. I don't see the Bujin Dragaon one talked about as much anymore, but I do see Hado Kaio's talked about still to this day like this. This is not how it works. This ability just does not exist, so I don't know where it came from. But how this ability actually works, and also it'd be really stupid to do that because a lot of these Armors Bakugan just have G-Power addition powers, so why would you want to ignite it, start a G-Power battle without one of those abilities? It just seems stupid to me. Unless you have a very specific gate card setup, but anyway. But no, how this actually works is you stand Hado Kaio on a card, and then you get the choice to just point at a Bakugan if you want to. An opponent's Bakugan. You point at the Bakugan, they have to just take it off of the card and put it somewhere else. Yep. They have to just put it back in their hand. It doesn't count as a 1 gate card or anything, but yeah, you could just force Bakugan back to their hand. Let's just say the card is covered by, let's just say this pretty decent coverage Bakugan here, right? Occupancy Bakugan. Dive Fujoe. It's covering a card. You want this card. It's going to be hard to roll onto it. You could just land Hado Kaio, tell them, it doesn't have to be in the same card, it could be somewhere else entirely. Doesn't matter how long Dive Fujoe's been on the card, you can just point at it, and then they have to take it away. That's what Blow Away does. It is very, very powerful, but that's just how the ability actually works. Last but not least, we have Yasha Tagaras with Free Select. I've seen 2 different interpretations of how Free Select works. The first one is that it overrides the attribute arm, allowing you to simply just pick whatever gate bonus you want, which would kind of just make attribute arms a little bit worthless, but I guess it's good for coverage. The other interpretation is that you add the attribute bonus, and then after that you then get a second bonus of your choice, which the problem with that is that it straight up just invalidates plus light plus wind and times 2 entirely. So regardless, there's a problem here. Which interpretation is the correct one? Well, it's the latter. Yeah, this thing just straight up invalidates 3 other armor abilities. I think the other interpretation just came along because it's at least more balanced. Okay, you get to, override it and choose. So, if you flip the card over, you'd get the choice of which bonus. But, no, you just get the darkest most, and then you get a choice of a second gate bonus, which is hilarious. Yasha Tagaras itself does have the highest base G power. Well, it has the potential to. This one's 770. That is the highest base G power in all BakuTech and Bakugan Armors. Flip over the card. This one, okay. No darkest bonus, but you could just choose Pyrus, so 870, cool. And that works for anything. So yeah, let me grab a different card here. Okay, this is a good one. If you land on Ogon Houoh's card, for example, well, you get the 20G bonus, so 790, but then you just choose Chaos to get, 890. It's kind of broken. The only way to beat this is if you have a very specific setup, or you also Free Select, and it's your card. If you're on your own card, you probably just win, honestly, so yeah, this thing is absolutely broken. I kind of understand why the other interpretation exists, probably just because it was surely it can't be that broken, and people just misconstrued it that way. But no, this thing is absolutely just busted for absolutely no reason. Kind of destroys the balance of armors, I'm not going to lie, but it is what it is, I guess. So there you have it. That is, everything that I have for this video. Quite a few misconceptions. I probably could have gone to, some really small ones or something, but I feel those really aren't worth it. That'd be this Bakugan's actually better for, attack than balance or something, and I'm not going to go into all that right now. These are more so rule misconceptions I want to go over, just to make sure, they exist. I know I went through some of the stuff I went through kind of quickly, but again, this video is mainly just for the sake of trying to get the rules out there. And how they work. I'm not trying to go in, crazy detail about certain things. Just want to correct the rules, so with that said, I think that's everything I have for this video.
And I know Dio Sivac took a long time to explain, apologies for that, but that one is convoluted as all hell. So, that said, that's everything for now. If there's any more stuff I need to do or clarify, I might make a follow-up video eventually, but hopefully I don't. So with that said, thanks for watching, and bye-bye.